Hey guys, it's another committee chat. Happy New Year. We are so excited to be back with our fam. And we got some shit to get into, okay? In college hoops, freshman star Kiyomi McMiller is all the topic right now. Um, Earlier this week, Kiyomi announced to the college community that she would not be playing against the USC Trojans at Rutgers in a home game. Let's read it. To my fans, I would like to apologize to my fans. I will not be playing today versus USC, which is the number 4 team in the country. This decision was made by my head coach, Coquise Washington. Thank you for your continued support. God bless all of you. Kiyomi McMiller, the product. Okay, y'all.
Good product. I like some good product now.
If you were the head coach of a college team and you made the executive decision to sit your player and they went to Instagram and made that tweet, instant reactions.
You gonna swerve in the corner on that bench. How about that, sister? The product will be benched.
The product.
We taking the product off the shelves.
You make it sound like a product.
I think for me, instant reaction, WTF, obviously. And what I mean by that is not like WTF, why did you post this? Because kids are gonna be kids, but WTF, like this wasn't as big as to what you've now made this. You know, there are a lot of times where I believe coaches, just like in any other profession, there are things that go on behind the scenes. Like if I'm managing a team full of people and I say, hey, Dolores, I need you to, focus on this and not join us with this, whatever the reason or rationale is, they have a method to their madness. And I think by taking that or allowing her to kind of post that, my what the fuck is more to like, are you a part of this team or are you really thinking you are the singular product?
Yeah. B, any thoughts?
I do feel like there was a lot of main character energy there, and like Rob said, is she the product? Is she the team? Is she the ticket? I just don't feel like they're. How am I going to feel as a teammate seeing something like that? And you're already kind of like, yes, as a team, you know who your best player is, right? But then also as a team, damn, you think we some scrubs? So like, what is that morale like in the locker room after seeing all of that? And the way that she constantly went on about it with all of the follow-up posts, that was a little excessive.
We're going to get into the follow-up post. The thing that really stood out to me, and I know it's kind of minor, but naming the coach like first and last name, I'm from the South.
That's a call out.
I don't call my mother by her first name as a 28-year-old man. Most of the players at my alma mater, the University of South Carolina, don't call the head coach by her first name. And I know regionally, respect is different. You can call an adult certain thing. But to me, just even the way that you wrote the coach's name out in that post gave very much, I don't see this as somebody that I'm learning from and that I am not underneath, because you never want to have this like top down, but there has to be a level of respect between player and coach. And the way that post was written took no accountability for maybe why you were held out of the game. Because when I see that post, that my instant reaction, what happened? And if you were going to jump the gun and make that post and announce it, then you could have also at least announced, I broke team policy. This things took place in the locker room. Things took place in school. I won't get into the details about it, but unfortunately, I will not be able to play in this game against USC. But none of that gave anything other than y'all can't watch me. Good luck to them and them girls. See y'all next time.
That's interesting because I didn't even think about the level of respect thing. I didn't take that into consideration. And now that you mention it, I think of people like Diana and Sue they still say Coach Ariema, Candace Dupree, Coach Staley. Like, so those type, they're gonna all say Coach Summit, Candace Parker, Coach Summit. Like, so, and these are players who are established and legends in their own right, and all will be future Hall of Famers. And I never thought about that. Like, so does she respect not only the program, but does she respect the coach and that staff for how she brings on?
And the program is Rutgers. Like, there is a legacy, there is a lineage, and there is specifically a Black legacy and lineage. And when you see the initial CVS and you see the name C. Vivian Stringer, there is just a level of respect that does not leave. And first and foremost, the program has to maintain it what it is. And no, Rutgers has not been Rutgers of old in a long time. But Rutgers is a legacy program, and for Black hoopers, legacy is that program. Like Rutgers is that program. Like anybody that grew up between the 90s and the early to mid 2000s, that's where you were looking at. And even going back further, you know, Iowa, Cheney, like all these places, like that name. And so as a Black hooper, you're playing for a Black coach, and Coquise has a legacy of her own. Like, you know, she's been on some great staff. She's been under Coach Lord Jesus, her name is terrible. Coach McGraw. And so that, you know, there, and she's an old school coach. She's an old school coach. And so just to me, it just reeked of just immaturity. And yes, she is a true freshman, but you've got a team, you've got family members, you've got an agent, you've got all this stuff. And so for that post to go up and stay up, it ain't, I don't love it. But
I'm glad you mentioned the Rutgers like legacy of it all, because was it April Sykes was like, let me read it verbatim. Don't let these new generation of kids fool y'all on what Rutgers basketball really represents. And like, you got people like Mattia Adjavon, Cappy, Kia Vaughn. You got people who grew up in that, who have built that structure, built what Rutgers is. Like, you know, when you get in a guard from Rutgers, Kai, Naj, Eric, you know what you're getting out of those players. They're going to be tough on defense. They're going to play hard. They're going to be good teammates. You know what I'm saying? So to have this be the like reason that we're talking about Rutgers after what, 5 years now is, yeah, it's not a good look. But I'm also, another point that I think that we need to touch on though is like leveraging public opinion to try to like strong arm people in positions of power when we don't know the story, right? So this isn't the first time. We all sat and watched Dre Edwards with who's it, Coach Elsie, go through Baylor and be like, oh well, she won't let me play. And people with common sense was like, well, why the hell you missing all these credits? Where the hell was your ass at? You weren't in class, was you? Shit, that's like 2 semesters worth of shit. What was you doing?
What's going on?
Right.
Just the reverse.
But she went and did a whole story on it, and just for Coach Elsie to be right. And so I don't like going out and trying to use the public to be like, oh, well, she's being mean to me and she's not being fair and this, that, and the third. Like, if you did something wrong, take it on the chin. And like Rob said, this wouldn't be as big as it is if you just would have been like, oh, okay.
And most times it's always against Black women.
Yeah.
So then that brings me to our next point inside of this. With NIL, we now have a generation of hoopers that, like, Coach Summit sat Candace Parker in her homecoming game because she missed curfew. And Candace had to take it on the chin. Did we have social media back then? But on no planet was she ever going to go in front of media and say, well, you didn't see me play in front of my hometown people because Pat Summit said I can't play.
No crap. Pat would have been like, girl,
right. And so when you have these athletes that are coming to these programs and saying, I'm the draw, I'm bigger than the program, I'm bigger than the coach. You want me here. You need me here. You're paying me to be here. A little bit of that team, a little bit of the respect, a little bit of the learning process that takes place, because then I see myself as your equal. I see myself as, what are you going to tell me when you need me more than I need you? And so when you're getting paid that much money and when your brand is built off of appearances, because let's be honest, that energy was specifically because of who they were playing. They were playing the USC Trojans. Juju is the biggest star in women's college basketball and has been the biggest star from high school till now. I mean, look at the stats, look at the material, look at the people she draws when she plays. We all talk about the Caitlin Clark effect, the Angel Reese effect. Well, baby, the last few games I've seen with Juju, the stands are packed to see her. The Juju effect.
And so on the road.
And on the road, thousands of miles away from where they play. Like, this ain't no, I'm one state over, I'm down the street. This is, I'm all the way on the East Coast, okay, in a snowstorm, and it's packed out for me. And so when I'm a player like that, and I live and I breathe off the attention of the overtimes, of the W slams, of the highlight hers, and I'm a kid that has built my whole career off of getting my rocks off on people on highlights. Well, my biggest moment to get a highlight is taken away from me because it's something I'm not holding myself accountable for. So how do we feel like NIL, this new generation of hoopers that are kind of a product of social media, a product of highlight culture, how do we feel like that factors into the way that she responded to being benched?
I'm going to say something that's probably a little unpopular, and I'm okay with that. When the whole NIL came around,
back in my day,
I was just not like, I'm not. And here's why. And I think Lo talks about this a lot when she is trying to get people to understand just like basketball stuff, but also like the minds of these kids. Like, at the end of the day, I don't care how good you are. I don't care whether you've been playing basketball since you've been 2 years old or since you've been 12 years old. The development of a person at that age, or the development of that person at that age, is ultimately still developing. She is still a child. And what NIL has done, essentially, for some of them, is it has stripped adults of the power, not control, because there's a difference, but it has stripped adults of the power to be able to lead a team. What do I mean by that? Because I know this is unpopular and people are not going to agree, but what I mean by that is when you are responsible for 15, 18 to 23-year-old women, and they're not all fully developed, they all are going through their own thing, and then you have one that is making it about them, that is making the product, or making them the product of the team, like Brandon alluded to earlier. What does that do for the rest of the team? So now as a coach, I am challenged in a matter of simply trying to keep my team intact. Nothing to do with X's and O's, nothing to do with on-court or community service or academics. It's simply, how can I keep all of these people together? And what has happened and will continue to happen is people like agents and managers will now have the ear of these athletes who no longer feel like my coach is not the end all be all. My agent is, my manager is. So what ends up happening to the coaches, they lose their, like, what can I do? My hands are tied. If I don't play her, then I'm being drugged through the mud because people are saying, well, she's generational. She's the best player in the country. But as a coach, hell, I don't care about that. I got 13 other women that I'm responsible for that I have to make sure are good. And so when you give these girls that autonomy to in essence, like, and I don't want to say own their career, because everybody should own their path and the trajectory of their career. But when you give them the power to be that person, that end all be all, it causes and it complicates the relationship between them and the coach, but the coach and the rest of the team. And that's the bigger piece that is missing from NIL. I love that they're getting paid. Do I think there are better or more effective and efficient ways to do it? Absolutely. But the way that it is currently going, nobody's ever going to be able to tell her anything, because to her, I'm bigger than the coach. I'm bigger than the program, and she needs to play me. That's simply based off the mentality or the mindset that I'm that girl. I'm the product.
Nothing for me.
Rob kind of summed it up.
That's it.
All I'm going to add to that is that something that I think nobody has touched on, though, is that you're going to get leeway as a star player when you produce results, right?
Yes.
And so when let's take Juju just because she was a part of the narrative and she is at a school that was not a big, you know what I'm saying? But even with Juju at this point in her freshman year, it was still like, okay, this is it, like right here.
Yeah.
But even still, you if I'm Kiyomi, I gotta look at my impact. Yeah, you've had some viral highlights. We're gonna give you that. You are a fun player to watch. We are rooting for you. But the results haven't come in wins. And so I really don't know how I'm gonna give you the keys to do whatever the hell you want when we still losing by 20. Like,
because if we measuring generational, when we talk about players that have gone into programs as a top recruit and have done it at programs that weren't at the top, we can point to Asia Wilson going to South Carolina, made it to a Final Four her freshman year, but she wasn't even a starting post player on that team. Then we can move our way to Caitlin Clark at Iowa. That first year, they made it to an Elite Eight and got obliterated by UConn. And then we can point to Juju at USC, who also in her first year went to an Elite Eight and lost to UConn. All three of those players and all three of those programs went to a deep run in the postseason. Rutgers is not even in the conversation to make the tournament. So if we're going to measure impact and measure my ability to say what I want on social media and do what I want and be that girl, you got to do something. And I think for me, when all of this unfolded, there were two ways that the narrative hit social media. There was the community of people that were like, well, what, why would you sit her? Like, what could she have possibly done that would make you not play her? Then there was also that community of, yeah, you might need to add a few more games. And so I want to get into
whack her again.
I want to get into how this rolled out on social media. So Shay's going to pull up some of the continuous posts that we saw on social media as a result.
so here's the first one right after about the worst loss.
So of course this is a repost or a reshare. But we've got underlining the program, of course, in school history. So to me, that's already like you're trying to embarrass the program, because why would you do that? Then Rutgers was missing star freshman guard Kiyomi McMiller, who wasn't with the team. And then another arrow for without McMiller, the Scarlet Knights struggling on offense. Now, we can get into that later. What's the next one?
So after that, we went to the best player one, my favorite.
Oh my. Okay. So Rutgers is, let's just break it all the way down. USC is the number 4 team in the country, and they are 15-1, and they had 92 points. Rutgers is 8-8, unranked, and they had 42 points. And then the quote or the post says, how do you not play the best player in the country, hands down, set the GOAT, and got cooked? McMiller, get back out there. Now, just to break this down a little bit more, the person in the center of the highlight graphic is Juju Watkins. Okay? And then to break it down a little bit further, Kiyomi isn't a top 5 scorer in the country. Juju is. Based on Kiyomi's averages, she could have added 20 points to the Rutgers scoring side, and they would have still lost by 30 points.
But also, to add to that, if you consider yourself the product and you really wanted to play, would they have even been able to operate in the full game plan, or does this become the product show? Because people want to see me against Juju, or people want to see this matchup. Am I going to go against the game plan to showcase who I am?
Well, yeah, because that's what we do at Overtime Elite. that's
perhaps the coach, again, knowing like, this might not be, these are things that we like when having these conversations. Like, we have to be honest. Like, we got to talk about all of this. Like, it's not just we don't know why she was set. And I'm not trying to say or allude to whatever I think it is. I don't know don't really care. But what I am saying is that, again, these coaches agree, disagree, like it, don't like it, know what they're doing. When Kim Mulkey set Angel last year for four games, everybody made up stories in their head and said whatever, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, Mulkey got Angel back in the lineup. They kept rolling and they kept moving. Angel didn't put out a post to say Kim Mulkey set me down, because at this point in the game, at this point in her career, I'm just trying to get to where I'm going, and that requires me to be a team player.
And when we think about letting a coach be a coach, maybe the coach was protecting you from potentially embarrassing yourself on national TV. Because what happens if I try to do me ball and the USC staff says anybody but Kiyomi, and you finish that game with 5 points on 1 for 35 shooting in front of your home crowd, trying to go 1-on-1 with Juju? Because if we gonna be honest, Juju is one of the best 1-on-1 defenders in the country.
Yeah, and you know Kiyomi was gonna get that joint and try to and Ju would have sat on that.
I mean,
You know how she hemmed Paige up.
baby hemmed the hem of his garment. Okay,
Her defense is also underrated, by the way. I saw it.
Yes, huge, like hugely. Okay, so just we on the same page there. So then now we see this, we see the fallout. Now the real gag of this whole conversation is that after this loss, Rutgers' next opponent is Minnesota.
And
Rutgers at last minute pulls freshman star from lineup against Minnesota. Now, I've not seen one Instagram post. I've not seen one tweet. I've not seen Talia Goodman and her think pieces. I haven't seen anything about this. So was I upset that I got benched by my coach? Or was the product upset that the product couldn't sell themselves on national TV in front of the girlies?
exactly.
Because Juju was in town.
Yeah. One thing I did forget was this is the most inflammatory to me.
Let's
the transfer one.
Okay. And again, we only see this because Kiyomi McMiller reposted it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. You know these other people.
Rutgers star Kiyomi McMiller cites coach for missing clash with Juju Watkins and USC. And again, none of these posts are happening without this person's name.
Exactly.
Juju Watkins. So my star is not my star unless the other star is there. Let's put that there. But to repost something that says transfer immediately is crazy, because a few hours later, her father was cited in saying that we are not transferring.
Mm-hmm.
We are staying at Rutgers. We are going to, stick this thing out at this program. So when we say the word we and the child or the student athlete isn't the one saying it, what does that hint at to y'all? When a father says we are.
A lot of conversation going on. A lot of external influences probably into the decision of the player. Yes, sometimes like parents or families they loan.
By various external.
Sorry, Gary wanted to join in on the conversation.
Recording us. What's the tea?
Gary's going to give us the tea.
Families, yes, they do loan their students or their kids to programs and to coaches, but it sounded like, oh, we're going to help make this decision, or we're going to provide input into this decision, or maybe the dad doesn't want to leave, but she wants to leave. So it sounds like there's a lot of spoons in the bowl.
Yeah, it's
butter pecan ice cream in that bowl. You
might
reach way down for that.
So it very much, to B's point, it does sound like a lot of cooks in the kitchen or spoons in the bowl. But if all those spoons are there and all the cooks are there, There was no one in the kitchen saying, "Don't repost that, don't retweet that, don't
Fact.
do that,"
Right.
because ultimately Kiyomi takes the brunt of the criticism, regardless of if this is her,
Mhm.
because we don't know if she's running her social media accounts. We don't know if it's the agent run or mom run or dad run or her run, right? So when we look back on this situation, we look at it through her lens. And that's when her lens create it builds a legacy, or it starts to build notches against her. And we know as fans of hoops that notches can become something that prevents you from getting to your ultimate goal, which is the WNBA. So we follow hoops. We follow Kiyomi, and I just want to give the audience a little bit of context into her recruitment. So Kiyomi has always been known as a really talented hooper, dating back to her high school days. One of the knocks against her was that she didn't go to one of the bigger prep schools. She chose to kind of stay at a more niche program. And so as a result of that, she was not named a McDonald's All American, which is something that a lot of high school seniors look forward to. And it was something that she has spoken about. When we looked into her recruitment, some of her finalists were Penn State, Temple, of course, Rutgers is where she ultimately ended up going,
Ole Miss.
UCF,
Yeah.
Ole Miss. And when we think about the context of collegiate hoops, those are not the top tier programs. And this is not me saying she needed to go to a top program, because I'm all for, players building up programs that aren't the name right now. But the thing that we can discuss is that a lot of those top programs have coaches that are respected, and coaches that put their foot down and say, I don't care if you were the best thing since sliced bread. You're going to come here, you're going to respect the system, you're going to respect the coaching, you're going to respect the roster. Another team that was on that list was James Madison, who is not even considered, a traditionally tournament team. And so all of that, and looking at what we're getting as a result of this situation, says that there may have been, or alludes to the possibility of, there may have been a fear of being coached and being challenged, pointing back to Rob's point about who's in your ear. Can I coach you? Can I get to you? So do we think that her recruitment played into some of the way that this shook out?
Again, with very limited information, knowledge, but just being around kids and even college students for the last 15 years of my life,
Seasoned.
I
Reverend Doctor.
I to me, it's more of a, and I don't know how I want to phrase this again without coming across like
It's
weird.
the committee chat.
But I think when you've been doing this for a while, you know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And going through recruitment process, having conversations, watching you play, and this goes for any athlete, but having conversations, going into your home, speaking to you and your parents, watching the interaction between you and your parents, you and your teammates, you and your coaches. A lot of coaches, especially those veteran coaches and some of the ones you name, when we think about the Mulkeys, the Genos, the Dons, the former Tars,
Vanderbilts.
like there are things that they just like at this point I'm just not dealing with. As opposed to a new coach, a younger coach might say, you know what, I'm new, I need to get my programs. They will take a chance on those things. So I think coaches get a very good line of sight throughout the recruiting process. And
Yeah.
at that point, they will decide if this is something that I want to pursue in terms of, do I want to deal with this later on? And to some people, it's worth it. And to others, it's not. And so when you are watching someone of that caliber in terms of athleticism and talent, you kind of got to weigh the pros and cons. Like, is this something that I want to bring in that could potentially be detrimental to the locker room or to the culture of the program? Or is this something that I'm willing to stick my head out there and say, look, by all means necessary, we're going to take her and we're going to build around her. Again, I think it's coach preference, but I think no coach can say, I took her without knowing. I don't believe so.
So then, Shay, as a former collegiate hooper and DMV girly yourself, what does this type of teammate look like for you? Based on the limited evidence that you have and based on kind of what you saw shake out on social media, what does this potentially look like in the locker room?
To me, it looks like somebody who's definitely not in the group chat. Like, I know they got a whole separate way of communicating without her. And that's just, like, I think that if I'm her teammate, if I'm Destiny, like somebody who is playing well,
right?
I'm holding my own. Like, I ain't, like, you know what I'm saying? I've been around the block. I'm here to hoop, you know? And yeah, we may not be the talented and1 mixtape type hoopers, but like, we're teammates 1 through 13. And you know what I'm saying? I just think that, and to Rob's point, like, Coquise is somebody who's a veteran in this game, right? Like, went to Notre Dame, coached Penn State, played in the WNBA. Like, this is somebody who understands culture. And to Rob's point, it's like when you have those newer programs, they're still trying to establish those bones, but you have to establish them. Otherwise, you're going to think you can come in here and just walk all over me and do whatever you want. And it sets a bad precedent for everybody else in the program. So if I don't hold you accountable, then player 13 that you think you're better than, you probably are better than. They going to think, well, we can do whatever the hell we want, or it's unfair. That's the thing. It's going to be a divide because I'm going to feel like, okay, well, if she can do that, why do I need to go to study hall? Why do I need to be on time? Why do I need to lift weights? So you have to hold everybody to the same standard. It is what it is. When you're trying to build quality culture, if you're not trying to build culture, then you let people do whatever they want to do.
And then also
a lawyer, a WNBA champion, etc.
Right.
But then going back, like,
speaking of culture, she played for, before Rob goes, we want to talk about culture. She played for the Comets. That is culture when you think about the WNBA.
It is.
So, like, come on, please.
Her vets. Ooh, my.
Like, right.
Her vets. Go ahead,
Rob. I think it goes back to kind of where we started this conversation. When you have the NIL, it changes things. Like, it truly does, because again, in her mind, she's thinking like, I am the program. Without me, y'all are nothing. Hence the Instagram post that came after that. Like, to her, it makes it seem like without me, y'all are nothing. And that's because of the fact that she gets a chance to make more than everybody else. She gets more coverage than everybody else. And that's why I say when NIL could be done differently, like, I feel like everybody should be able to get some people, because imagine a player on the team, like Shay was alluding to a minute ago. I may not be as good as she is. I may not be a starter, but I'm taking my ass to study hall every day. I'm at the same practice you at every day at the same time. I'm lifting the same weights in the same weight room at the same time as you. So why do you get to be this person and I have to follow the rule? Like, that's the thin line that causes that divide, or causes what we see happening right now at Rutgers.
And in reality, hoops does not happen without 3 or 4 people without 2, or if we talk about 3x3, 2 other people or 4 other people on the court with you. I can't even be myself without my team, because at the end of the day, even if I'm the greatest hooper that ever lived, I can't get every rebound. I can't shoot every shot. I can't beat a 5-man press by myself. I got to get the ball off my hands. And so even if my whole team is not stars, I can't be myself without it. Even if I leave here, I still have to have teammates to help me get off, to help me be the star I am. So if, to y'all's point, if there isn't a level of respect, if there isn't culture, if there isn't rules and regulations set in place, how do we decipher? How do we break up the selfishness of the team? Like, because ultimately then it's just 13 individuals.
Right. And I think we got to be realistic. And I want to make sure that people understand that we're being realistic. Star players are going to get star treatment. That's in every program and that's just how it's going to happen. We understand that. But the thing about being a good leader and a good teammate is if you are causing division within your locker room, and no, I don't know what's going on, But if your teammates feel like, oh, well, you feel like you're a step above or cut above the rest of us, am I having your back when it's time to call that screen and you in transition? Do I have your back when somebody trying to tussle with you on the court? I don't know. It manifests itself in so many different ways. So that's why I think whatever the issue is, somebody got to sit down like an adult and be like, okay, we need to fix this, or somebody got to, you know what I mean?
But also, hand in hand with that, your star players are 9 times out of 10 your leaders, and they don't look to receive that special treat. I know I could get this. Juju knows she could do whatever she want to do, and she probably ain't gonna be pulled to the bench. But I want to set the example. I want to set the tone so that everybody else behind me doesn't come and think they can do that. And so I think heavy is the head that wears the crown, regardless of what arena, what sport, what group, what project, what team. At the end of the day, if you know that you have that star power, you know that you have that following, people are always looking at you. So what are you doing that helps to bring along everybody else? Like,
no,
I hate Asia is the prime example. Like, I've never heard Asia, like, I don't want to say brag on herself, but make it about her. She always finds a way to circle it back. Well, I know I did this and I was great, but I got to thank Chelsea. I got to thank my coach for putting me in this spot. Like, that's the kind of star power, or that's the kind of attitude that should come with star power. When you know that you know, but you don't have to show that you know.
Yeah, B.
Yeah.
So then, if you're listening to this and you're not familiar with the topic, there's a little background, a little context that adds to this that we want to get to. So prior to getting to Rutgers, Kiyomi went on a podcast and was interviewed. And inside of that interview, Kiyomi spoke to recruitment and spoke to some current collegiate players now. So we're going to pull that up.
I've watched the other schools that they say I could go to. Like, do they really believe I'll fit that style? Like, it's ridiculous how you have a guard that won't even, she's being left wide open for threes and no one's guarding her. Like, that's me.
You looking at that like that's food. I'm about to eat out here.
Exactly. Like, I'm shooting that. Like, that style is just, I couldn't play like that. Like, the schools I picked for a reason. And I could see myself actually playing at all those schools.
Hey, Kiyomi about to smoke. I'm letting everybody.
Until you not playing at those schools, but
obviously we all know who she was taking a shot at. The player people love to take a shot at, but don't have more rings than, or as many rings as.
At any level.
At any level,
But again, this when in your mind you're the product, you say shit like that, and you like that don't shit. Who's gonna check me? Because I'm the draw. I'm that girl. So I can say this and walk away and laugh and joke because I'm the product. But I think what we haven't discussed, and I don't think a lot of people realize, is where's that starting?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Who's in her ear?
The languaging and, like, I ain't nobody's English major, but whenever someone starts the majority of their conversation with the schools I picked, it couldn't be me. I'm going to take that shot every single time. There is always going to be a level of selfishness to be a good hooper. Like, when people talk about the Mamba mentality goes along with, like, having that extra gear. But inside of that, when you're speaking on this situation, you're speaking on a player that is being coached by one of the greatest point guards of all time. The game that you're referring to, that player knocked down 50% of the three-point shots that she took. The player that you're referring to is a two-time national champion. The player that you're referring to in the year after that had the defensive stop or led the defensive charge to beating the player that most people call generational and the best thing since sliced bread. So inside of that, there's that immaturity that, of course, we hear that we don't necessarily have to speak on, but it's the audacity for me. It's the audacity to think that you know more, you are more than a coach that maybe is coaching a system that says, I want to get the ball into the post. I want to focus on initiating my offense from the inside so that I can shoot from the outside. Because let's be honest, like just general hoops IQ, if somebody is wide open, it's because the other team knows the scout, right? And if the scout says that that's a low percentage shot, and the coach says that's not the shot we want right now, we can take it eventually, just not right now, then a smart player is going to take the shot because that's what the coach is telling them to do. And if I trust my coach, I'm gonna stick to the scout. You just told us, baby, I don't care what the scout is. I'm gonna take the shot. So then when we circle back to this recruitment, well, maybe that's why some of those names aren't there.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, I'm just I'm thinking of all the that would be said, all the spoons in the bowl, and there's just no way I'm letting the product say that on camera. Like it's just that would not have made it out. You can't, man. I
mean, and say the thing with a smile too. That man said,
but
"You
again,
got
that goes back to what Shay said. You're the product. Like you're, and to be fair, this is we're discussing her, but this isn't just singular to her. Like this, we are seeing this more and more and more. And I again, knowing especially like just development wise, like they aren't all the way there. Like it just, and when you don't have the right people in your ear, when you're not willing to be coached in terms of life, but also like understanding that there are people that know and have experienced more than you and have been places that you are trying to get to, and you can't connect there, we got bigger issues. And that's why I asked earlier, like, where's this starting? Like this is not becoming.
It really makes sense when I've heard those legendary coaches like your I keep going back to them, Coach Staley's, Coach Ariema, Coach Vanderveer, while she was in the business, they always talked about the families. It is so important to, and now with NIL, not only are the families important to coach, but you got to coach their teams. And those teams are agents and their marketing reps and their branding and PR reps. Like all of those people you have to touch to make sure that they're an appropriate fit for what it is that you're trying to do with your program, because if not, we get these type of instances. And not only was the player going in, her reps were also going in.
Saying stuff.
Like you have people who are supposed to be the adults in the room that are supposed to be representing, I don't want to say a child because, 18, they're adult, whatever, but representing these young adults, you can't really tell the difference. Like who is who at this point. And so like, not only do I have an issue with you, now I got to make sure that your mom and them good, your agent and them good. They're bringing all this unnecessary attention. Like I don't have to deal with that. I already got to manage 13 possible to 15 different personalities. And I also have to go and deal with your family and your executive team. Absolutely not.
It's like coaching the pros.
Yeah,
I got to worry about your agent, worry about who's getting paid what. Like it's a tough game. One thing I do want to say though is that we are not piling on Kiyomi. Like we enjoy her. She's extremely talented. We are rooting for her. We've been waiting for her to get to college to see what she does on the college stage. And we don't know the details of what's going on. My only thing is if you bring it to social media and you're waging war on not only your program, but your coach, it's just not a good look for everybody involved, no matter what the reason is or isn't. And I mean, they got tough stretch coming up. Like I think after their game on Sunday, they play, let's see, number 20 Michigan State, number 25 Michigan. Then they play UCLA. Like really rough, really quick. So I'm hoping that whatever it is,
product about to be on clearance.
I'm hoping whatever it is, they can sort it out so that she can get back on the court.
So, Shay, you brought up the point that I kind of wanted to finish this conversation with is it's almost like coaching an NBA team. And that can take on twofold. It can take on the Rob's conversation about NIL in that it turns the coach into a general manager and not the coach anymore. Because the coach is no longer, I can't even focus on X's and O's anymore. I got to focus on my X's and O's in relation to well, if she's making this much NIL money and I need her here, air quotes, I gotta pay her at least 35 minutes a game because she's got 2 deals that say if she doesn't meet these stats each game, then she could be dropped, allegedly. Or if she doesn't, if she's not on major TV showing my brand, showing my marketing, we're gonna pull her NIL funds, and her NIL funds are related to her being here. That's an issue. So the coach can't even just focus on the play on the court. I got to focus on putting her on the court, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, to support the money that she believes she deserves or they believe. But it also goes in line with what does the future of college hoops looks like if the upcoming top players all choose to take on the mentality of, if the coach coaches me, I can use the court of public opinion to shift their coaching. Because we have to be honest, the legends in the game are aging. We don't have 10 years with the Dons, the Genos, the Kims, and whomever else is. And when we think about those type of coaches, there's respect. There is the rules. There is the culture. What happens when we start seeing new coaches that are a little bit more of a product or more influenced by these players, and they don't have the titles to back up what they're saying? They don't have the coach. They're not a prominent figure. Like currently, when we think about young coaches, you got Neil Ivey. She's coaching Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles, 2 huge stars. What happens for players that maybe want to go somewhere else and the coach isn't a Don, a Gino, and Niel, and they may take on this approach to a tough situation that in the past we might not have known about? Like, the Angel situation. We never got the details of why she was suspended. It just stayed on Twitter, floated in the air. She came back and had a good season. Well, we got all of the rollout just off the strength of what the kids said on social media. So what happens to the next top recruit or to a high school senior that's in that same predicament? They're saying, well, the top teams ain't recruiting me, so I'm going to go to a smaller school, and if they don't play me, I'm going to get the tweeting.
I mean, the thing about that, when you go that route, though, is that you can be how do I say this nicely? You can be an all-world generational WNBA talent. There are so many of them that do not make it there.
Well,
and it is not guaranteed that you make it to that stage. And it isn't always about the on the court thing. It is as much about the shit that's happening off the court and how you approach the game. So, I mean, it's a slippery slope. That's what I'll say.
Okay.
But I mean, you were right about the GM thing. Like the reporter for ESPN, Woj, left ESPN, and he's the general manager at St. Bonaventure. Like, and I think more schools should move toward being like, okay, we just need somebody to manage the extras of this.
Yes.
Coach, I don't care that you have a Jordan brand deal and you need XYZ done. I can't do that. I need to coach what is on the court.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on this? And I definitely want to hit to, as we're wrapping up, the fact that, to Rob's point, this is not and to Shay's point, this isn't a roast session on her. I think this just opens up the conversation to discuss where we are in the climate of college hoops, because this was kind of what unfolded. But this has happened before, the Kyra Elsie situation, and Dre Edwards, and it typically shakes out between a black head coach and a star player. And so we could definitely discuss that more in depth. But any final thoughts about this situation and what could unfold as a result?
In terms of how do we move forward or not,
yeah,
her and the team. I do think that this is something that has to be addressed in terms of with the team and how we handle situations like this, because you don't want to go through something like this and just leave it out there where people form their own, what happened, what didn't. I think this will end up being a great learning lesson for her, if nothing more than this shit didn't belong on social media, because now it's what it is and it didn't have to be that. So I think this will ultimately turn around or end up being like a real learning lesson for her. And just the fact that knowing that, again, heavy is the head that wears the crown, and not everything will go your way. Not everything will happen the way you want or think that it should happen, but ultimately knowing that you have, again, those right people around you, your coach included, to be those voices of reason.
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I want them to fix it because I want Rutgers to be back as a perennial powerhouse. And I mean, I'm rooting for her. Like, you got UCLA coming. Like, you want to go in there and knock some heads off. And I get wanting to play. You just got to, it's a growing moment. It's a learning moment. You a child, it's okay. You 18, 19, you don't know no better. You just learn from it. But you learning from it in real time in front of everybody. And that's
on national TV.
Yeah. So I hope they can fix it, whatever it is, in the locker room and work it out. She get back on the court.
All right. Well, good luck to the girls. And that's the end of our committee chat. Thank y'all for chatting with us. And we will be back for another one.